The college football playoffs are officially set. These are the 12 teams that are in the newly expanded format. Oregon, Georgia, Boise State, Arizona State. Those teams get a bye because they won their respective conference titles, along with Clemson, who won the ACC Conference Championship, Texas, Penn State, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Tennessee, Indiana, SMU, who made it over Alabama, and Clemson. Now you have these college football analysts on ESPN who had a different opinion on the fact that SMU made it over Alabama as regard to their quote-unquote strength of schedule should have been taken into the criteria when the committee made the selections to put these 12 teams in. Let's take a listen to what Nick Saban had to say. Nick Saban, who's a former head coach at the University of Alabama.
Yeah, but my point earlier was that if SMU was 8 and they played in the conference championship game and they lost by 3 points, they shouldn't be penalized for that necessarily. But my question about all the strength of schedule, 15th strength of schedule versus 60th strength of schedule, that should have been taken into consideration before they ever played in the championship game.
No, it shouldn't. No, it shouldn't at all. But I'm going to finish what he had to say.
All right, so maybe they're ranked 12th, and if they win the game, they get in. If they lose the game, Clemson gets in. All right, so, but it wasn't that way, so now it looks like they have to get penalized. But if it was done based on strength of schedule to start with, that wouldn't have been the case. So I really think that playing in this conference, and I played in this conference for over 20 years, and when you have to go play Tennessee, then you got to go play LSU, all right, then that team that you play next, you may be more vulnerable to. And you have to have a more...
That's a bullshit excuse, and I'm not here for that. Okay, I don't want to hear the differences. Well, SEC is the toughest conference in college football. Congratulations, you're saying the sky is blue. We all know this. We all know that SEC is the powerhouse of college football. Are you going to penalize Boise State for playing in the Mountain West? Because Boise State, they beat all the teams in their conference. Boise State went 7-0 in conference play. Alabama went 5-3 in conference play. The difference is Alabama did not beat the teams in their conference. SMU, who got in over Alabama, beat all those teams in their conference despite losing to Clemson in the ACC championship. One team was playing in a conference title while the other team was at home watching that team playing in the conference title. And SMU only lost by 3 points to a last-second field goal buzzer beater. So now are you going to tell the committee to set a precedent that they said, hey, you know what? Records matter, conference championship matter. All right? SMU had a better record than Alabama. SMU was playing in a conference championship than Alabama. So now you're going to say, well, you know what? Are you going to tell the committee to flip their own criteria that they said just to put Alabama in because Alabama is the more recognizable football program? I call bullshit on that. If you're going to say, well, the strength of schedule should be taken into consideration, then just get rid of conferences. There's no point of having conference play because why should you penalize a team in the Mountain West or a team in the ACC or Big Ten for playing their own conferences and beating teams in their conferences compared to a team in the SEC? I don't get that. That's bullshit. That's bullshit. If you're gonna say that for SMU, then say that same thing for Boise State because Boise State does not play in a Power 5 conference, but they swept their teams in their own conference. They went 7-0. Alabama went 5-3. Alabama has 3 losses compared to SMU has 2. Alabama, 2 out of those 3 losses are inexcusable. You get dog walked by Oklahoma, only scoring 3 points, and you shit the bed, losing to Vanderbilt. Those 2 losses are inexcusable. So I don't want to hear, oh, strength of schedule should matter. If that's the case, then get rid of conferences. There's no need to have the ACC, SEC, Big Ten, Mountain West, and all those different conferences. Get rid of conferences and have just people just scheduled to play each other because that's bullshit. I don't want to hear that. Alabama did not do their job. They had 3 losses on their record this year, and 2 of them were horrible. SMU only had 2 losses going at the end of the conference championship. Going into the AC conference championship, they only had 1 loss. One loss. Boise State started the season off and they played Oregon, who finished the number 1 team in the conference, finished in the playoffs, finished undefeated. So are you going to penalize Boise State because they only scheduled one team that was ranked at the top 25 outside of UNLV. They lost to Boise State, only lost to Oregon by 3 points. By 3 points. So thus that criteria also applied to Boise State because they don't play in the Power 5 conference. I don't want to hear that bullshit. Alabama did not do what they had to do. That's why they're out.
A very mature, competitive team that has a lot of depth to be able to play through all these circumstances, and it's very, very difficult. And to not take into consideration when you don't beat one top 25 team, not one top 25 team.
To take into consideration when you lose 3 games and you get blown out in 2 of those games, you lose 3 games to your conference opponents. That should also get taken into consideration. When you don't even make your conference championship game, that should also be taken into consideration. That's what the committee says. Those are the 2 most important criteria: your team's record, and if you play or win your conference championship games. Now you're saying that SMU should be penalized for making the conference championship game. Meanwhile, Alabama finished 4th in the SEC. That's bullshit. Alabama did not deserve to get in. Alabama did not deserve to get in. I don't want to hear about the strength of schedule. I want to hear about, oh, well, the SEC is this and that. We all know the SEC has been a conference for hundreds of years now. Now, should we penalize that? Should we be saying, oh, well, you know what? Mountain West teams and ACC teams that just joined the conference should have belonged because they had a weaker schedule. That's on Alabama for scheduling and playing in a conference. They should have beat the teams in their conferences, but they didn't. They fucking did it. I don't want to hear that bullshit, Nick Saban. Yes, you're the greatest coach of all time, but when you're wrong, you're wrong. And of course he's going to say that because he used to coach at Alabama. And of course you have the people on ESPN say, well, you know, SEC teams should be in because they play in a tougher conference because ESPN has broadcasting rights to the SEC. But based on what the committee said, Alabama did not meet their criteria to be in the 12-team CFP. Case closed. Case fucking closed. You went through
your whole season and never had to, Indiana didn't do that. SMU really didn't do that. So it makes a huge difference. I mean, the Pittsburgh Steelers got beat by the Cleveland Browns. I mean, we don't sit around and say that should knock them out of the playoffs. They still can play their way into the playoffs by beating other good teams. So that's my point. That's the only one I got.
That's a stupid fucking point. He's like, so now he's comparing college football to the NFL. That's a stupid fucking point. Alabama should have done their job. They should have won. They should have not lost 3 games. They should have won more games, and they should have been playing the SEC title, but they didn't. They didn't even make it. So all that hooting and crying and all that bullshit sobbing, I don't want to hear it. I'm not here for it. And if you're gonna go that excuse, then then Boise State should be penalized too. If you're gonna use that excuse, the fact that Boise State plays in the Mountain West and not in a tougher conference. But Boise State swept their conference just as SMU swept their conference despite losing to Clemson in the ACC Conference Championship game. Give me a fucking break, man. Give me a fucking break. This is all I'm crying Alabama should be in it. They lost 3 fucking games. No excuses. You cannot have a 3-loss team be in the conference championship. Clemson is an outlier because Clemson finished top 2 in the ACC. So if you're a top 2 team in the conference, you play for a conference championship. But Alabama did not meet the criteria to be conference champions. So I don't want to hear none of that bullshit. Alabama did not meet their criteria to play in the college football. If they wanted to make it, they should have beat those teams. Don't lose to Oklahoma. Don't lose to Vanderbilt. Point blank, period. Let me know what you guys think about this. Do you agree, disagree with my commentary? Leave a comment down below. Smash the like button, subscribe to the channel. I'll catch you guys later. Peace.